Hi Sam, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing real fine. I'm excited about this podcast with you. This is actually my first time I do this in English, so it'll be cool.
Oh, that's good. I'll do my best to make it a great first meeting.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I this is also my first time I speak with someone the same major as I do, like the same mechanical engineering. So
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. So excited to like talk about something that I know a lot about.
Right, right.
So, for those who don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hello, my name is Sam. Um, I am a mechanical engineering student. I go to RIT, same school as Kong.
Hmm.
That stands for Rochester Institute of Technology. Um, I am in my fourth year, starting my fourth year out
Hmm.
of a 5-year program. Um, because I'm on a co-op program and I've interned at two companies, both Fortune 500, I think is what they count as. One is Canon, the camera printer company, and the other is Tesla, big old Tesla.
Nice, the famous Tesla.
Right.
All right, so let's go with some basic stuff first. May sound a little bit like interview for employer, but what made you choose mechanical engineer? Like, what was your inspiration?
Fun fact, I actually got asked this on a recent interview.
Oh.
And to be honest, I was never planning to go into mechanical engineering. Had a very like liberal arts background in high school where I excelled way more in English and
Mm.
arts and sciences and history. Um, but then I found out that you don't make a lot of money doing that. So at the last second, I was like, uh-oh, I have to apply for college and I don't have an idea of what I wanted to do. But um, I grew up in construction with my dad,
Mm.
helping him build houses and such. And one day I was kind of sitting around my house looking at things, and I was like, huh, I wonder how toilet paper rolls are made. And at that point, I was like, well, I guess I'm going to college to figure out how toilet paper rolls are made. And since I had that construction background, I was like, you know what, mechanical engineering can't be that bad, right? Like they do this.
Mhm.
So then I applied to college. Although in retrospect, I'm surprised that I didn't apply for like manufacturing engineering or packaging engineering. But at the time, I didn't know that those were like programs that existed. And, you know, it only happens at certain universities, and RIT didn't have it, and I went to RIT. So I kind of just had to stick with mechanical and hope for the best.
Yeah, right. But oh, yeah. um, you can see some aspect of arts and drawing in engineering too, right? When you do CAD
Right.
design,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
to me, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, mechanical engineering is really sort of, it's known as like the jack of all trades of
Right, right,
engineering,
right. Yep.
because you really just do get to do whatever you want with that sort of degree. Like you can go into a multitude of industries, even work for Disney and Universal. So that's cool.
Yeah, yeah. I remember your friend was applying to Vicor. What was his name
Right,
again?
Jules, Julia.
Yes, yes, yes. And yeah, our boss was so impressed with her Universal and NASA internship. It was insane.
Yeah, I mean, I was jealous. I wanted to work for Universal and NASA, and I couldn't get in.
Mm,
But, everyone has their own strengths. She went to Universal, I went to Tesla. So,
that's good. Yeah,
yeah.
that's great too. Um, so any reason why you chose RIT? You like it in RIT?
Um, to be honest, the reason I chose RIT was because I got a huge scholarship,
Nice.
like a
Okay.
huge scholarship that made it um about as reasonable as going to a state school.
Wow.
And I preferred their smaller class sizes as opposed to a state school. And I'm so glad that I actually decided to go to RIT because I have like friends who go to UCLA, UC Berkeley,
Hmm.
and all those other colleges, and they talk to me all the time saying like, "Wow, I'm literally going to like fail this course because I try and go to office hours and I'm sitting there waiting in like a 3 hour line because the
Seriously?
professors, yeah, yeah, especially at Berkeley for CS, the professors and the TAs are so busy helping other students that they literally have like a queuing system and like they can't get in to go see the people for help. I was like,
Right,
yikes.
right, right.
Whereas I get to walk in to Dr. What's her name? Dr. Ivancy's office and
Yes,
say,
yes,
"Doctor, I have no idea what's going on. Please help me." And she like sits down and, helps me out through all my work. So,
yes. Thank God for office hour, man. I mean,
yeah, for
I
real.
really need it for homework and stuff. And a
Yeah.
TA too. I think like the TA in RIC, like all the course so far in Mackie, is just very helpful. They are very helpful.
Yeah, might be biased there a little bit,
A little
calm,
bit,
but
yes, yeah, a little bit, a little bit.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but you talk to some TAs and they are also very successful too, right? Some of them go
right.
to Tesla, I think, but some of the guy go to Tesla, I think, or SpaceX,
There was,
whatever. Yeah,
yeah, SpaceX. Yeah, my
yeah, yeah. That's the
thermodynamics
guy.
roommate went to SpaceX. I was like, wow, so smart. I could not be me, you know?
See, those kind of people like make you want to be better. You see, like
Right,
with the BTA, aspire you to be better, and one day you can do it, make it too.
right.
Sound a little bit naive, but
Yeah.
um, so what do you what do you think about like the dynamics and students in RIT? Like at least in our department, how you think of the students in our department?
Um, that's a great question. I think I think at least at RIT, you have like you a lot of them are from Ohio for whatever reason.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I've noticed
Mike's
so many
fun.
people
Yeah,
are from Ohio and Illinois and
yeah,
Pennsylvania, and
yeah.
I'm like, wow, that's okay. Like I didn't expect that. I thought they'd all be from New York.
Mm,
But
right.
it's generally country kids, or not that they have like southern accents, but
Mm,
kids who like go off-road biking in their free time, and
mm.
a lot of mechanics where they fix up cars in their free
Right,
time.
right, right.
Um, and I don't know, it's kind of weird because I grew up in Los Angeles, so it's like me, a city girl, not really having that sort of same background, trying to fit in with all these kids who are like, again, country kids, or they were like the top of their class. You would not believe how many people I know in our major who were like valedictorians. I mean,
Wow,
I was like top 20 in my high school, but in my defense, I had 2,500 kids in my graduating
wow,
class,
wow.
and
The
they
big.
were like valedictorian of their class of literally 28 kids. I was like, okay,
Oh, okay.
cool. You can keep your 4.0, but I don't know. I don't know. Um, but yeah, I mean, generally I was more surprised to see that like there's actually quite a few females
Yeah,
in
yeah.
mechanical engineering. I know that doesn't like everyone um keeps talking about how like, more women in STEM is good and we need to push for more of that. And so when I got to college, I was expecting to be surrounded by like 90% dudes, which is kind of true because there still is like, 70% of our major is guys, but it's
Yeah.
nice to have other females who are taking the same classes at me so we can all kind of, bond together over that.
Right.
Um, so that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. Everyone's really nice. I also didn't expect that. I thought they'd all be like the stereotypical nerds who kind of keep to themselves and don't really talk to other people. But no, it's really great being in college and kind of having like everyone sort of suffer together. Doesn't matter
Right.
what grade. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Doesn't matter. what year you are, because everyone's taking the same professors and same classes. Doesn't matter if you're boy or girl, if you're like, city or country.
Hmm.
If you're really smart or really dumb, everyone suffers the same.
Right, right.
So, yeah.
One way or another, right?
Yep. Yep.
Or like trying to find internship and not getting calls back and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. You would
Oh yeah.
not believe. I've had so many friends talk to me over Zoom this semester. They're
Really?
freaking out about like spring semester. They're like, "Oh my God, I cannot find a co-op. Like nobody's hiring." And I'm like, "Hey, you should talk to this person because nobody's hiring them either."
Right,
But
right.
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, we all been there, so.
Yeah, I was definitely there a couple months ago.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
it's rough out there.
So, can you tell me a little bit about like more girls in the engineering class? Like, so does that make a difference? Like, if you feel more comfortable with more girls in your class?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think I'll probably get into it more later, but definitely like at Tesla, it's a big thing to have other females
Hmm.
um around you because it really does like form a huge sense of community
Ah,
out in industry. In school, it's kind of like all the girls are the same in that we're all kind of masculine in nature,
right,
very very tomboyish,
right,
um and so like I guess in school it helps, it definitely helps to have other females, especially when you come across non-school related issues with guys and whatnot.
right,
You know how
right,
it is. um but there's also things that I couldn't talk to guys in engineering about that I would talk to girls in engineering about.
right.
Like, hey, you have this one professor, well, not professor, but you have this one class and it doesn't necessarily feel like the girls are being treated the same as the guys. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, I kind of experienced something like that during my internship.
Hmm.
Um, but it's really just that sense of community where guys are you get to talk to girls in a different way that you can't with guys.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Because for me, I don't. So, so far, I always been in like in the selective class with more with in how do I say this selective class what which specialize in more science major. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like in my high,
right,
I would in my high school I was in like um, very science focused class.
right,
So most of the time I'm almost always where have a class with more boys in the class than girls. So I
right.
so for me it's kind of hard to relate to that stuff. But yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So hearing you talk like that, I was kind of surprised. I guess I didn't know you guys feel that way. So yeah, it's interesting to see from your
yeah,
perspective.
yeah. I mean,
Right,
different strokes for different folks.
right,
Kind
right,
of how it be.
right. Um, all right. Let's move on to employment. So, Canon. So, was it like when you first finding your co-op in Canon? What was the process like, and um, what to do when you got the offer and everything?
Right. So my first internship search was actually surprisingly easier than my second one. This is
Oh, okay.
quite rare,
Mhm.
but it does happen.
Mhm.
And so when I originally started applying to internships, I was sort of selective about where I wanted to go.
Mhm.
Um, and I said, okay, I definitely would like to work in a manufacturing environment because, again, I went to college to find out how toilet paper rolls are made.
Right.
But and I sort of expected companies like Unilever and Procter and Gamble to show up at RIT's career fair. That did not go as planned. I mean, there was Johnson and Johnson, but I wasn't about to work for Ethicon.
Yeah.
So that's more pharmaceuticals, and I wasn't really interested in that,
Mhm.
to be honest. And they were looking for biomedical students anyway.
Right, right, right.
But when I searched for places, I was like, okay, manufacturing is first on my list. Then if I can't get into manufacturing, maybe automotive, and then maybe defense after that, and then go on from there. And
Mhm.
so I looked at the career fair list that RIT had put out because we have an on-site school career fair,
Mhm.
and I sort of blocked out a couple of companies that I wanted to go talk to, um, and see what happened. I actually had no idea that Canon was going to be there.
Mhm.
And the only reason I found out about them was because I was on Hot Wheels, which is the all girls Formula Hybrid
Right,
team.
right.
Um, and we had a performance team open house the night before of career fair. And so it was my first, no, second year on the team. And I hadn't done much at that point. I think I did something for like the brakes of the car, but they needed somebody to greet all of these companies who were coming to visit our like car team, you know?
Mhm.
And so I was like, well, nobody else is volunteering. Like, I can do it. I can stand at the front and greet these people. So I was instructed by the sort of alumni or just older girls to greet everyone and say, hey, welcome. This is Hot Wheels. We are like the performance team, all female, yada, yada, yada. I'm so and so. And my job here is to do X, Y, and Z. And so you basically give like a brief overview of yourself, what you do
Right.
for the team, and welcome them in. And so we had a couple companies come, like Honda was there, Canon was there, Polaris, which is like another like vehicle company, all like passed through. So I went and introduced myself to them, and then we kind of had like a little meet and greet. Um, and at that point, the Canon lady, her name is Erin, she's very nice, was like, "Well, I'll take all of your resumes right now if you want to give them to me." And I was like,
Oh,
"Oh,
really?
yeah." I was like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting this, but like, if you want to give me a job, would love to take it." So I handed my resume in, and at that point, I didn't really think of Canon as sort of a manufacturing environment. I sort of saw them as like, oh, you know, they design these parts, but maybe they outsource it to some other company
Right. That's
for
what I think at
manufacturing.
first too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I had no idea. So I was like, whatever, I'll give her my resume because I need a job, but I don't expect to hear anything back. And so that happened, and I didn't hear anything. And then the next day, I went to the career fair, and I followed up at the Canon booth because they were there,
Mhm.
obviously. And so I was like, hey, you guys like talked to me last night. Just wanted to follow up. Here's my resume again if you guys want it. And it was so cool because like whenever you go to a career fair, they always have free swag, like
Right,
you
right.
know, water bottles and stuff. Let me tell you, if you are looking for a company with like the best free stuff, go to Canon. They literally gave me like this little mini toolkit that had like a whole screwdriver set, um, with even like the star screwdriver bit, which you
Uh,
never see.
yeah, that's
Um,
so rare.
yeah, yeah, I was
Wow.
surprised.
Yeah.
And then it has like a little tape measure, a little leveling kit, and then
Wow.
like a little box cutter. I was like, wow, you're giving free weapons away. But like wow, like I'll take it. It's perfect. It's good. I still have it. It's awesome. And then they also gave away like water bottles, notebooks, etc. Um, yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. And then I, of course, talked to my other companies, and they were like, well, you know, we'll get back to you if we hear anything or if we like what you we see with you, and then go from there. And so
Mhm.
I I was like, okay, cool. And I didn't hear anything back. No, I take that back. I heard back from two companies
Mhm.
the day after, and those interviews didn't go so well, to be
Yeah.
honest. I walked into one of them, and within like it was a panel of four senior engineers
Gee.
crowded into this tiny room, and I was completely unprepared for that.
Mhm.
But I was like, you know what, it's fine, we're gonna be okay. So I go to shake their hand, One of them has a cup of water on the table, and as I'm going to shake his hand, I spill the cup of
Oh
water and
no.
it gets everywhere. And I was like, oh my God, I am so sorry. I did not mean to do that. Like, wow, like, oh my God. Um, like, didn't cry, so that's cool. But at that point, like, the rest of the interview was completely moot. Like, they were not listening. That guy was like, wow, my pants are still wet. At the very end, I did the worst thing you could do. I was like, again, so sorry about your pants. And I think that sort of shut the book
Uh,
on that door.
right,
But
right.
it's fine.
It's
It's
fine.
fine.
Stuff happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really do be like that sometimes. And then the other company that I had talked to, it was raining extremely heavily the day after the career fair, and because the parking lot was blocked off, I couldn't get driven close enough to the doors
Hmm.
of the conference center, and I didn't have an umbrella. So I walk in and it literally looks like when you cry really heavily on prom night, you know? And so there's like mascara running down your cheeks.
Hmm.
So I go to the restroom, I try and get cleaned up the best I can, and then I get into the interview, and the two ladies interviewing me, like, to be fair, it was 8 o'clock in the morning, but
Hmm.
it just looked like they did not want to be there. Like they were not interested in anything I had to say. And I was like, wow, maybe it's because like I'm a little wet from the rain, but like yikes. And needless to say, they did not call me back, but that's okay. Um, yeah, so a couple months passed because this was in late September, I
Hmm.
believe.
Yeah.
And around the first or second week of December, it's like right in the middle of finals week, so I'm like stressing out about finals. I get a call at 10 in the morning on a Saturday of all days, which is surprising. And
Right.
it's the HR lady from Canon I had talked to. And so I answer the phone. I'm super groggy. I'm like, hello. And she's like, hi, this is Erin from Canon, Virginia. Is this Samantha speaking? And I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe that they actually called me. So immediately I perk up and I'm like, oh, yeah, this is her. This is she. How can I help you? And she goes on to tell me like, hey, was just wondering like, were you available for an interview anytime next week? We would love to learn more about you. And I was like, all right, cool. Yeah, I'm completely available, whatever time works. Let's set it up for Monday at so and so time. And so I'm freaking out because wow, a company actually wants to talk to me, little
Hmm.
old me.
Yeah.
And I was mostly surprised because at that point, like, I'm a sophomore student. I don't really do extracurriculars aside from the car club, and even then my contribution was limited because I'm focused on school.
Hmm.
um, GPA wasn't that great either at that point. Had a couple of run-ins with other issues aside from school. Um, and honestly, when I was doing my resume, I was so freaked out about not having enough experience for companies to want me that I had just put down in the extracurricular section, like, I disassembled and reassembled like a broken toilet because I did, because I had to fix the toilet in my apartment that had broken, and like services FMS couldn't fix it because of whatever reason. So I was like, you know what, maybe that'll count for something. But I get into the interview and it's like Monday morning again. I'm like trying not to freak out. It's my first real interview,
Hmm.
aside from the other two that I completely messed up. So I'm like, okay, let's not screw this one up. And it goes relatively well because I prepare correctly. And at the very end, he's like, well, do you have any questions for me? And I'm like, yeah, actually, like, what made you look at my resume, as opposed to everybody else's? And the hiring manager, which ended up being my manager while I was working there, he said, well, it's because in your extracurriculars, you put that you disassembled and reassembled a broken toilet. And
Nice.
we love to see people who are really hands-on in their work, because there's so many engineers out there who will just like only do computer things and not want to have any hands-on experience. And it's really good to be well-rounded like that. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe that I was just grasping at straws for stuff, and it actually worked. It freaking worked. So,
Nice. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, that was exciting. And then within, like, we finished up the interview, it went great. And she was like, well, if we decide we like you, or we want to extend an offer, we'll reach out to you in the next week. And then lo and behold, a week later, she was like, hey, we really loved you. We would love to have you join us for summer. Please let us know within like 2 weeks whether or not you can come. Uh, yeah, yeah. So I was like, well, I have no other prospects, and it's also like a really short time span of 2 weeks to say yes or no. So I'm just gonna
Mhm.
say yes and see what happens. And then yeah, I got the job, and I showed up in Virginia.
That's cool. See, the prospect you tell me about the hands-on stuff,
Right,
that's really cool because in my so I was in the interview process for the new co-op too, and one of the few questions is do you all it's always do you have some machining experience, because
right,
machining, we don't really need to do machining, but having a knowledge of how to do it actually
right,
helpful when it comes to design stuff, right? because
right,
because sometimes you have to know how the stuff got made before you have know how to design it, you know what I mean?
right. And at
Right,
least in a manufacturing environment, we we actually call that design for manufacturing.
right, right.
And like I've sat in a bunch of meetings where the design engineers will propose something,
Mm-hmm,
and we as manufacturing engineers have to say, well, actually, no, that's not a possible design, and you need to rethink that because
mm-hmm.
like there's no way for us to manufacture that. Like when you
Right.
have say you have like a block of aluminum
Mm-hmm,
and you put a hole right in the center,
mm-hmm.
um, but only in the center of the block, and like there's no hole leading to the outside. There's no way for somebody to physically be able to machine that um, unless they're like 3D metal printing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and nobody does that because it's like $100,000, um, or with like a machine that costs like more than $100,000, and so we have to go back and tell them, hey, you can't do that. Like, go figure out another way to get whatever feature you need out of this part.
Right, sometimes it's a question about like the cost, and then the um I say practicality, yeah,
Right,
of the part
right.
too. So yeah, a lot of engineering. So despite what people may think about engineering, a lot of time we also have to work with other engineers to figure stuff out.
Right, yep,
A lot
yeah,
of negotiation and so forth.
yep,
Totally.
yeah.
So when you got the offer, how is it hard to find housing, and stuff like that, and transportation, of course, too.
Oh, oh yeah, that was a huge thing, and it still continues to be a huge thing to consider
Yeah.
when I'm looking at prospective internships and whether or not to accept. So usually, like at least as a mechanical engineer, I know software engineers never have an issue with this because they always get like top dollar
$5.
salary ranges.
Right.
But mechanical engineers, at least for internships, you can land something anywhere from like I've seen as low as $11 supposedly,
Right.
all the way up to like usually the 22-ish mark,
Mm-hmm.
24-ish mark
Yeah.
for your first time internship.
Right.
Obviously there's like other people who will get higher or lower offers, but
Mm-hmm.
usually that's where you start around. And that's not very feasible if you're trying to only live for 3 months somewhere. Um, Mostly because a lot of places don't really do month to month leasing for apartments.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do, they're like extremely expensive apartments. And of course, if you're trying to save up all your like internship money for housing and food and lodging or whatever when you get back to school, that can also be um, like very difficult to
Right.
balance
Right.
when you're
Right.
thinking about this. And so housing definitely was a huge issue for me, um, because they were willing to give me summer housing with all the other interns at a local university where they would subsidize some of the cost.
Mm-hmm.
And we would only have to pay like a couple $100
Mm-hmm.
every month for our housing. But once the other interns were done for the summer, I would be the only intern left for the rest of that 4 month or 3 month period.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, good luck finding housing. Like, we can't help you because all the housing at the local university will be filled by the regular students there.
Right. Right.
Um, and so that was quite stressful, because, of course, I wasn't making enough. And so I ended up having to like look on some sketchy roommate website. I got to I got to find a place, but it was literally quite possibly the worst living conditions I could imagine someone being in. Um, it's the middle of the ghetto.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like when I say ghetto, I mean like ghetto ghetto. Like there's
Right.
police cars roaming around. My roommate had like three dogs. One of them who was very sweet, but he was a puppy, but he was a pit bull puppy. So you would think he's a small dog, but actually he's like the full grown size of an adult dog, but with
Wow.
puppy tendencies of jumping all over you. So every time he would jump on me, like I would bleed because his claws would like grind into me. And she got another dog that she picked off the side of the road in Louisiana on one of her trips down there. And that dog, I swear that dog had like bipolar disorder or PTSD or something, because every time it saw me, it thought I was a new person and would try and attack me. And so I couldn't even go to the restroom in the middle of the night, because it would run around the corner from her room to try and like bite me. Um, so wasn't great, but we got through it. But yeah, it was definitely something that I thought long and hard about when I was looking for my second internship. Like, hey, are you going to provide like a relocation stipend or a housing stipend or free housing or what? Because I am not going to live in that sort of situation again.
Right. Right.
Um, and transportation is another issue. It definitely eats up a lot of your cash. And so I try and find a place that's closest to wherever I'm working. And like obviously if you're really nice or if your coworkers are really nice, you can
Yeah.
like set up a whole carpool situation.
Right.
Um, but if you're trying to be a little more independent and you're not comfortable asking your coworkers, or you don't know your coworkers yet in order to be able to ask them, you know, then you're sort of stuck. Um, Ubering or taking a Lyft every day,
Mm-hmm. It's
which is what
also
I ended
expensive.
up doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up doing that every day for like what, 2 months, 3 months at Canon. Um, and it was a lot of money. Let me tell you, it was like
Yes.
$25 every day.
Yep.
Um, and all my coworkers were like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" Like if we were driving that way, we'd pick you up, but oh my God, that's so much money. Um, because at that time, that was like maybe an hour and a half of my work
Mm-hmm.
every day taken out just for transportation,
Mm-hmm.
um, in cost. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
I
So.
mean, I was lucky enough with Tesla to have transportation and housing covered.
Mm-hmm.
But if it wasn't for that this time around, I don't really know what I would do. So it's definitely something to consider if anyone listening is looking at a new internship or the
Right.
possibility of one, is like, how am I going to get to and from work?
Yep.
And where am I going to live in
Right.
relation to my workplace?
Right. So, um, what did your did your Canon experience, was it worth it? Was it worth all the trouble? The experience you got from the internship?
My Canon internship, and I say this with full confidence,
Mm-hmm.
was one of the best decisions I have ever made, like
Ah.
professionally.
Okay.
I think I could not give enough kudos to that place, for giving me the tools I needed to succeed and really like both benefit Canon and myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like wow, amazing. If you guys have the opportunity to, definitely apply to Canon, Virginia. Um, I worked in the advanced manufacturing technologies department. I know other departments for other interns may not be so great, but like, wow, super cool. Love them. Could not recommend them enough.
Right.
Um, I thought it was crazy how much responsibility they gave me as
Mm-hmm.
an intern.
Mm-hmm.
Like at one point, I had like 4 or 5 projects stacked up at once,
Mm-hmm.
and they were all like n- completely integral to the machine that we were building. So
Mm-hmm.
if I messed it up or if I didn't get my stuff on time, like the project just wasn't going to get done on time. And so I was freaking out at one point. But for the most part, like I had so much stuff I did there. I made like 4 different robot hands.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I made fixtures for those robot hands so that they could pick and place the pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I did mounts for everything. I designed a ton of other things. I did like small side projects along the way. Um, and you would think like, oh, how do you do that if you have no like background experience? But like the people there will teach you. Um, and I think I was really blessed when I went to have such a great like mentor. And then I call him my surrogate mentor, but it was an engineering technician that I just became really great friends with. So all the stupid questions that I couldn't ask my regular mentor, like, oh, what size bolt should I use for this? Or like, I don't understand how a vacuum works, like,
Mm-hmm.
even though I took like the class on it. Can you teach me how a vacuum works?
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
ask the engineering tech, and he would say, yeah, like here's how it works. It does this, it does that. And I don't know. Overall, it was an awesome experience. I couldn't don't have enough great things to say about them.
Wow.
And yeah, they're a great training ground. But definitely I couldn't go back to work there full time, mostly because the neighborhood surrounding it was not so great. Um, but also because after like the 4 month period, I
Mm-hmm.
kind of got into the groove of things and I felt like I sort of stagnated professionally. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was as far as Canon could teach me, and I would have to go somewhere else to grow and develop and learn some more
I see. I
when
see.
it comes to manufacturing.
I see. Well, one of the aspect you say, the technician, yeah, I feel like those guys are very great. So I don't, those guys don't have enough. I mean, uh, people don't give those guys enough credits. Those
Oh,
like,
you would, yeah,
yeah,
you would
right.
not believe. Um, I
They know
love
so much.
engineering techs with all my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have so much knowledge to give,
Yes.
really, especially when it comes to design.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and nobody gives them enough credit for
Yeah.
what they
Yeah.
do. Um, and like it kind of sucks because even at both companies and other companies I know of, there tends to be like a superiority complex with
Of
the
course.
engineers
Yep. Yep.
who work there, where they think, oh, like the engineering techs are somehow lesser than us. But
Mm-hmm.
as far as I know, like at RIT at least, engineering techs get placed in similar classes to regular engineering students.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that it's more focused on like how you apply the tools as opposed to the theory behind them.
Yep.
So like, you know, don't discount other people just because they don't have a freaking piece of paper
Right. Right.
that
Right.
you have. And I don't know. I always ask the engineering techs what they have to say about my design, and they always have something good that they come back with, where they say that sucks, change this. Everything else looks great, and that always fixes my design and makes it look like super awesome to the higher ups. Um, and yeah, yeah. If you guys are ever in an internship going forward, make friends with the engineering techs. They will be your best friends, not
Mm-hmm.
only professionally but personally.
Right. Right. And also like it comes back to the term that like when you know enough about something, you can explain that to a 5 year old.
Right,
Right. It's
right,
that simple. Yep. You can simplify it in terms of simple language that a 5 year old can understand. So
right.
so it's to me is Those guys in Texas, awesome.
Oh yeah, 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 definitely.
Right. So how about Tesla? So tell us about Tesla internship, like the whole 9 yard, the process of applying and how it's like to work there.
So Tesla's internship process um, is extremely fast. Like if they want you, like they want you, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And the recruiters, like they'll say it first. Like when they're hiring, they hire um, with the intention of getting that position filled as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like GM or other companies where, they'll let applicants pull around for like a couple days or a couple weeks or like a couple months and then start shifting through it.
Mm-hmm.
Like Tesla's like, okay, we got to get this filled now.
Mm-hmm.
There's no time to waste. And so from the time I applied to the time somebody reached out to me was a total of 3 days.
Wow.
Um, and to be honest, I didn't even really want to apply there. I had no intention of applying at Tesla because I had heard horror stories about other interns working there beforehand. But I needed to apply to somewhere because um, if I didn't, I wouldn't have a job. And like my university had said, oh, if you don't like show us that you've tried to apply to places, we're not going to believe that it's like a COVID situation where you couldn't get a job because of COVID. We're going to believe it's because you were
Right.
lazy.
Right.
So I was like, okay, well, I'll just throw my resume in the pile. It doesn't really matter. But then they reached out and they were like, hey, this one team wants to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm it sounds like they do a lot of electrical work based on their name. Like I have no interest in electrical stuff
Mm-hmm.
because I suck at electrical stuff.
Right.
So, what the heck? And she's like, well, okay, it's up to you whether or not you want to take the interview, but if you ever want to have like an informational interview, let me know.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I had a few other prospects, but I was like, you know what? It's fine. I'll just do it. I'll just go for it. And I did it, and it was cool. I talked to the guy, or the guy who interviewed me ended up being my mentor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I talked to him, and we had like a quick little conversation. And he was like, "Okay, well, we'll let you know if we like you, and then um, if so, then I'll see you here real soon." And I said, "All right, cool." And I left that interview feeling pretty good, even though I didn't want to work there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so like it was a whatever situation for me. And I didn't hear back from them despite having like two or three follow-up information or follow-up emails
Mm-hmm.
for like a week and a half. So I sent a third like follow-up email like, "Hey, um I'm still talking to other companies, but like I need to know, did I get the job? Did I not get the job? Am I still in the running? Like please let me know." And they finally got back to me and said, "Hey dog, yeah, you got the offer. So sorry about that, but the guy who like interviewed you had a ton of feedback, loved you, all that nonsense." And so like, yeah, we'd love to have you on board. Here's like, we'll give you here's your starting pay, and we provide free housing, um, or like a relocation stipend if you want, plus like a relocation stipend if you choose the free housing. And then yeah, you go from there. And I was like, sick, that's awesome. And I get overtime. Um, and so I was like, okay, well, I guess I have to take it. I was interviewing with a couple other companies, including like GM
Mm-hmm.
and this other one that's a smaller company, but they didn't reach out to me in time. And so I had to like tell Tesla yes
Mm-hmm.
without considering them first,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of sucked in retrospect, but it's fine because GM denied me anyway.
Yeah.
And I didn't find out that GM denied me until like mid December. So like literally 2 weeks ago. So I'm sitting there like at my desk at work, and I get the email from them saying, "So sorry, like we just didn't have room for you this time around." And I'm like, "GM, like wow, oh no, what am I going to do for the next 2 weeks of my life without you guys accepting me?" Ooh.
Right. Well,
So
that's the issue with
yeah.
big companies. They just the HR, the process,
Yeah.
everything just suck. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the same problem I had last time where like I applied for HP, Hewlett Packard,
Mm-hmm.
And I was in the middle of my Canon internship in like
Mm-hmm.
July, and
Mm-hmm.
they were like, "So sorry, we're not accepting you for a summer internship." And I'm like, "Oh
Thank
no,
you.
whatever will I do?" So
Oh my god.
yeah, there was that. And so Tesla wanted me to start as soon as possible.
Right.
But I couldn't do that because obviously I'd have to like move my entire life around.
Right.
So I had to, or I ended up making the move from New York to Reno, Nevada,
Mm-hmm.
within a total of like 2 weeks,
That's
which
crazy.
is kind of crazy in
That's
retrospect.
crazy.
But 2 weeks, I was in Nevada and unpacking my stuff. Um, and then I started on a Monday. Yes, a Monday in like the middle of September.
Mm-hmm.
And from then on, like once I got there, it was like, here's the product that you're working with. Um, Learn as much as you can about it because we're about to put you on like a million different assignments, and then see what you can do with that.
Classic Tesla.
Um, so yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah.
So, what exactly what team you are on in Tesla?
I think I can say this. I hope it's not under
Yeah.
NDA.
Yeah.
But it's called Power Electronics
Power
and
electronic.
Energy Products.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So we don't, or at least my department wasn't really car focused.
Mm-hmm.
Like as Elon Musk says, he doesn't really think of Tesla as a car business as much as it is just a bunch of little startups, and the car business just happened to be the one that was most lucrative and therefore the one that was like most advertised on TV.
Mm-hmm.
But we like Tesla is both a car company and like an energy company.
Mm-hmm.
So, they have like the Powerwall, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a residential product, or like the solar roofing, which
Mm-hmm.
is also a residential product. But now they're branching out into like industrial products like Megapack, which
Mm-hmm.
is more for like if you're an industrial company like Edison, Southern California Edison,
Mm-hmm.
which is, electrical.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you want to do microgridding, or you want to like supply a bunch of batteries or whatever, um, for gridding systems. I don't even know about that product that much,
Right.
tbh, but um, all I know is that it's for like electrical companies, industrial electrical companies.
Right.
So it's like one big battery unit. Um, and so that was the line that I worked on mostly. But again, we do everything from superchargers, which is what it's like the little electrical stations that cars use to charge up in,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
if you have a Tesla. It's all the residential products. So again, Powerwall and roofing, and then Megapack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So your job was like product design or design for manufacturing?
So I was a manufacturing intern,
Okay.
and um again, as Elon says, um the machine is relatively easy to design.
Mm-hmm.
It's the machine that makes the machine that's difficult to design,
Right. Right.
and where most of the effort goes. And so I was making the machine that makes the machine. Um, and so I did a coolant fill machine for the Megapack. Um, and that was mostly design work on my end.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also did some process flow work, which is like, the floor plan layout of where like or of what the product line looks like, so where everything goes within the factory,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then other smaller side projects relating to that product.
Mm. So yeah, I remember you talk about that a little bit. The pipe design, you have to choose different piping and tubing system, and calculating drag and all that stuff, right?
Right.
Right.
um
Flashback.
yeah. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yep.
I think it's the really, I think when it comes to manufacturing, a lot of people think that it's very calculated, um when it comes to choosing what's the right size to have everything. But really,
Right, right.
when it comes to manufacturing, as long as you over design the system, that's generally what 99% of the engineers are doing, is just if you choose um something larger than what you need, then there should be no problems of like failures, you know? So say you need like an M6 bolt, if you choose like an M10 bolt instead, it's overkill. That means that you'll never have an issue with
Right, right.
how it works. And so at that point, because you're over designing, drag or calculations of drag is less of an issue, until you're trying to think about like your throughput and what's the difference between doing it the most optimized way and
Hmm.
versus doing it the easiest slash most over designed way. Um, and I kind of got called out for that at the end of my internship because my manager was like, "So, you say that your system has overall improved mechanical efficiency. Um, how does that like affect us business wise? Like, how many more products can we make now that it has better efficiency?" And I'm like, you know what? That's a great question. I'll definitely have the next guy who's going to take on my project tell you about that. But I have zero answers for you, and I leave in like 2 days. So,
Luck.
just take my word for it. But yeah, that's generally manufacturing. Like, there's not enough time to come up
Mhm.
with the right or the most calculated way of doing things, as much as it is just do your best to get something out there that's working and then think about everything in post.
Do you think that Tesla is too fast paced for you? Is that why you have to rush everything a little bit too much?
Well, Tesla's culture is generally more fast paced than everybody
Yeah, right.
else's.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think that's very obvious.
Hmm.
Um, and so with that sort of like push to get products out in time, um, their their methods of doing things also can be a little bit rushed. But that can be same for most people or for most companies in the industry, is you're doing your best to get a product out there in time. And so sometimes shortcuts need to be made in terms of getting things set up.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and that's most, again, like I said, goes for any company, especially startups. And Tesla is definitely still in like sort of a startup phase. It's not established or as established as other automotive companies.
Right. You've been around for 15 years, so
Right.
right, right.
Yep.
And I think Elon must say something about Ford and Tesla are the only car companies haven't declared bankruptcy yet in the history of US anyway, I think.
I'm gonna take your word for that. I don't know. I
Yeah,
haven't
yeah, yeah, yeah.
anything he hasn't posted on Twitter. I know nothing about.
Right, right. Yeah. Well, anyway, yeah. So you do you learn a lot from Tesla?
Sorry, say that again.
Oh, did you learn a lot from Tesla?
Yeah, I would say that I have. Um, I think a lot of the most important lessons I learned were sort of not in the academic sense, but sort of
Mhm.
in the personal development sense, soft skills.
Wow.
Um, so obviously, like I took away like a large amount of knowledge when it comes to pneumatic and hydraulic systems.
Mhm.
So like I can definitely point out what a pressure transducer looks like now. That's cool.
Mhm. Right.
Pressure transducer, pressure switch, like I got you. But most of the hardest lessons that I learned from Tesla were more personal. Um, like, how do you effectively communicate with somebody? Um, or what's the best way of trying to get your point across without being too harsh?
Mhm.
Or um, what's what happens when something you are doing isn't going the way that you want it to go. Like how do you react to that
Hmm.
without, ending up behind on your deadline, or without necessarily stopping other people's plans to have them help you with yours. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Do you take your work as something personal? Like when, like back in Tesla, did you feel like you have to defend your work as it's something you hold on to a little bit too personally? That makes sense.
I I learned that lesson way back in Canon, which is no.
Okay.
In fact, it's quite the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
If you really want to be a great design engineer, you have to sort of distance yourself from your work
Mm-hmm.
and think of your work as just a thing that you created and is
Mm-hmm.
now going to be sent off to a million different people. And by the end of it, it's definitely not going to be the same thing you created,
Mm-hmm.
most likely, because so many people will have touched it and put in their own little tidbits.
Mm-hmm.
But you can still claim the credit at the end of the day for it, and that's all that matters.
Right.
So,
Right.
um, like at Canon, again, remember that I come from a liberal arts background,
Yeah.
where I'm heavily like English based, and they had me write a specification document for one of the products. And I remember like being super nervous about it. Like I even told my mentor, "Hey, I really don't think I can do this because I have really bad anxiety, and
Mm-hmm.
like it's really hard for me to like sit down and write things out because I'm so afraid of like what other people will think." And he looked at me and he's like, "Listen, I promise you, whatever you write, it could be the best thing in the entire world. You are going to send that to somebody and they are going to hate it. Like they will find something wrong with it that they just do not agree with.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to go, but it's quite literally perfect. Like it's perfect. And everyone else can agree. And that other person will say, no, this is shit. This is awful. I hate it. You're the worst. Well, you're not the worst, but your work is the worst.
Yeah. Yeah.
It needs to be changed. And you kind of just have to um, then, take in that sort of criticism and go, okay, he's criticizing my work, not me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at that point, it's not like a personal offense. It's just to make things better,
Yeah.
or to make the product better. And so I kind of took that to heart when I was working there.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything from that point on, anything I designed, I was like, you know what? Not the best work that I could have done. Like I could have sat down and really like hand calculated all these measurements to optimize everything,
Mm-hmm.
but this is the fastest I can do it, and also is like, 90-95% of my effort put in, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with that. And even if I did put in 100% of my effort, they'd hate it anyway, so let's just
Right.
do this.
Yeah.
And then I'd give it to the next person and they'd say, I don't like that. And then they'd give it to the next person and the
Mm-hmm.
next person would say, I don't like that. And it'd go down a line of people, and then I'd get that information back and go, okay, he wants this change, she wants that changed, and he wants this changed. So I change it all, I bring it to the next meeting, and they're like, awesome, we love it, you're the best, like best
Mm-hmm.
work, great. And it goes on the machine and it's perfect. And at the end of my review, um, my employee review, um, one of my quote unquote strengths was the fact that I had like a great um, ability to handle constructive criticism and
Right.
learn
Right.
from other people's mistakes. And I was like, hey, that's cool. And it's literally just by not caring, well, not caring, but like uh excuse my French, but by not giving a fuck. So that's it. That's really it. And that's something that like you have to um well, it brings itself over to working for Tesla or working for any other company when you're doing design work. Is it doesn't matter what you do as long as you do something. And then somebody else will come in, make their remarks, you change it, and then you go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. I think um, one of the good one of the best things you could do as engineer. Sometimes you have to take things professionally, not personally. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
Yep.
that way you can handle criticism in a constructive way. So
Right.
right, right. That's cool. That's all. Man, Tesla. So what? Can you tell more about the work culture in Tesla? Like, is it really a lot of pressure?
There's definitely pressure at every level, no matter if you're a line worker or if you are a intern or if you are like the tip top of the company,
Mm-hmm.
you know, everyone is sort of feeling that um pressure not only internally from like, like, oh, I'm working at this place, I
Mm-hmm.
have to do my best because only the brightest get here, but
Mm-hmm.
you could kind of feel it when you're in the office where other people around you really like they really put in their all into their
Mm-hmm.
jobs. I could not tell you a single person at Tesla who does not go in there and not put in 100% or 110% of their effort every single day while they're there. And so that really sort of motivates you to try and be better than you were the day before and
Right.
get all the products out on time slash earlier and really just do your best to make the company its best.
Mm-hmm. Did you have to work a lot of overtime?
Honestly, because of the bus schedule, I had 2.5 hours of overtime a week just by default.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, there were definitely days like I definitely pulled a couple all-nighters for some
Mm-hmm.
of my work.
See.
Not gonna lie. And it again, when I say 110%, I mean there's people I'd get there on like a 5 a.m. shuttle and there'd be somebody in the office working, and then I'd leave at the 6 p.m. shuttle the same day and that same person is still in the office working.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wow, I could not. I watched a guy drink 5 cups of coffee in one day and it was definitely not decaf. Like some of those people, man, they're insane, but in a
Yeah.
good way. Like I
Yeah.
suppose if that work is for you, then that work is for you. Like
Mm-hmm.
you do you.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely a demanding job.
Right. Feel exhausting, but is it worth it? Do you?
Um, I think that's a very subjective question. Um,
How- Yeah, but you personally, do you feel worth it?
personally,
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think that I am a great fit for Tesla's culture.
Okay.
Especially because I view myself as somebody who wants to work at a company long term, you know, just because I end up forming like personal attachments to the people at work because you spend like what 10, 12 hours with these people, or if you work a normal job you spend like at least 8 hours
All right.
with the same sort of people every single day. So you want to develop those relationships and then continue that for as long as you can.
Right.
And I think I've sort of found my niche of um, manufacturing engineering. It doesn't really matter the company or what they make as long as I can do the manufacturing portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so at this point, because I've sort of got that all settled, I'm looking for somewhere where I can really, really sort of stay there for a long period of time. Like I don't want to jump around from company to company. And Tesla is personally just too demanding of all my time and resources in order to see myself staying there for like 10 years on end or 15 years on end, you know?
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
But that's definitely not the case for all the people there. I know there's one guy who's been there for 12 years and he's still going strong.
Holy cow.
So, yeah, it's really a mixed bag of people who work there. There's people who leave. There was one guy that I knew who left after like 3 months. Um, and so it again, mixed bag,
Mm-hmm.
mixed sort of personnel that go through.
Yeah, but once you got the Tesla name on your resume, it's just it's still a lot of it's worth a lot.
Right, right.
And now you survive Tesla internship. It's just you know, should it should be good for you now, right?
You would think. You would think. I've definitely heard, I mean, I'm applying for my next summer internship, so we'll
Mhm.
see where that takes me. But I heard that this girl that I was working with, she said that she had applied to like 100 places
Gee.
before working at Tesla and didn't hear anything back until this one place called, which was Tesla, obviously.
Mm.
And then after she worked at Tesla and she put it on her resume, even with the most minimal information, no metrics, no nothing. People, she applied to like 20 places and got like 5 or 6 callbacks, which,
Right. Wow.
is like a relatively large response rate
Mm-hmm. Of course.
for having so few applications. So I'm like, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
love to have that sort of response rate.
Of course.
um,
Yep.
Especially considering my last internship search.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I meant to ask you. The follow up thing. How do you follow up with employers? Because to me, you're very good at that.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Tell me about that.
Um, I guess I'd like some clarification on that. What do you mean by follow up? Do you mean like you want to figure out if you got the job, or you want to talk to somebody that you haven't talked to in a year, or um you want to
Well,
say thank you, or
like follow up as in when you got the interview and when you start applying to start applying to companies and how you handle the relationship with your employers. Like how do you how to say it how do you develop that relationship between employers?
um I suppose so. I'm assuming you're talking about thank yous and figuring out whether or not you got the job.
Yeah, like that.
So yeah, definitely one of the biggest things that um is so frustrating when I hear all my friends say it, or say that they didn't do it, is whenever I go into a career fair, I always make a point to either give out my contact information on my resume, or I exchange a business card with them. You
Okay.
can get free business cards, not sponsored, but you can get free business cards at 4 over 4
Right,
at
right, right,
home.
right.
I
That's what I
believe.
want to talk
Yeah,
about. Yes, that's
yes. And that's one of the good ways to do it, but it really depends on the company, because some people really don't like taking a business card from you, which is kind of
uh,
weird. But you're always welcome to ask, like whomever you talk to at a career fair, like, hey, can I get your contact info? That's always a great question to have at the very end
mhm,
of an interview. Obviously, after you've asked all your other questions, because you should always have other questions.
right.
Um, but you should say like, hey, do you have any contact info for you? So that like going forward, I can follow up and do whatever I need to. And most of the time, people are pretty like okay with giving you that. And so when you have that contact info, it could be a number, it could be an email. Usually it's an email.
Email.
Or even if you even have like HR's contact number or contact email, it's a even if it's to like the general department, like somebody's going to get it and then pass it along to the appropriate person. Um, but generally within 24 hours, you want to write a thank you email to preferably the person you interviewed with, and or the HR person that reached out to you. And you send an email that says like thank you in the title, or thank you plus follow-up questions, or thank you, just thank you.
Mhm.
And
Of
then
course, yeah.
in the body of the paragraph, you say like, hi, so and so, thanks so much again for meeting with me to discuss X opportunity. Would love to continue this conversation. If you have, or like if you'd like to going forward, put in a little blurb about what you thought was like your best takeaway from the interview, saying like, oh, it was so great to hear about X, Y, and Z at your company, and I'd love to be a part of your mission, etc., etc. Um, Here's my contact info again, just in case you need it. Um, I look forward to hearing back from you soon is
Mm-hmm.
always a really good ending, because that sort of implies that you're looking to hear back from them and that they should be responding to the email.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and then you end with like, thanks again, or usually not sincerely. I think my email signature is normally best regards or
Yeah,
best,
yeah.
and then your name.
All right.
And then always have a signature at the bottom of your email. Not enough college students do this, but if you have a signature at the bottom of your email, so that's your name, your year, your major, your school, your telephone number, and then any other contact information you want, so like your LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
usually is a good one, or your portfolio website. Any of that information you can provide them is like, always a plus, just so that they have as many means to contact you as possible. So they're not like sitting there searching, like, oh shoot, I lost their resume, but I need to tell them they got the job.
Of course. Yeah, yeah.
Um, that's the thank you email.
Mm-hmm.
And that usually works out pretty well. If you
Mm-hmm.
send it within 24 hours, um, yeah, mostly because if you do it after that, they'll forget who you are
Yeah.
sometimes. And also, it kind of looks rude if you don't. But I
Mm-hmm.
also know a ton of students who don't send thank you emails. So again, it only works in your favor to send it as soon as possible.
Right, right.
Um, it also helps to send that thank you email, especially if you bring up in like an interview, like, "Hey, I worked on this," and they say, "Oh, can I see that?" And for whatever reason, you can't send it to them
Mm-hmm.
during the interview itself. You can always include it in your thank you email and say, "Oh, by the way, tell so and so, here's the thing that they wanted to see." And it's like a great way to connect with the person you were just talking to.
Right, right, right.
The follow-up email, once you haven't heard back from them within, like, I'd say usually a week, is when you kind of want to be like, "Hey, what's going on?" Unless they told you like, "Yeah, you'll hear back from us within like 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever."
Mm-hmm.
The 1 week mark, you start an email saying like, following up, and
Mm-hmm.
then you say, "Hi, so and so, just following up about the status of my application.
Mm-hmm.
Would love to hear any updates you have for me." Um, well, first you start with, "It was great talking to you again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, would love to hear any follow-up information you have regarding the status of my application.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would love to join X company's mission of blah 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 blah. And am again looking forward to hearing your response soon." And then you say like, "Best regards, your name." And usually that should elicit a response. But again, I had like 3 or 4 follow-up with Tesla emails that kind of went like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually just repeating the same information of, state your interest in the company again, ask for more details or any details about the status of your application if it's not listed in your applicant portal on whatever website they have,
Mm-hmm.
and then sign off and say like, "Again, thank you so much for this opportunity, blah blah blah," and then there you go.
Yeah.
um, I think the other big one that people tend to miss is, like, when they're accepting a job opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
um, they should be sending another thank you email, like,
Mm-hmm.
"Thank you for this opportunity. I'm so excited to join the company," or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them will just say like, "Yes," like, "Cool, awesome,
Mm-hmm.
great,"
Yeah.
like, "Yes, I am taking this offer," and then not say thank you. And I think that's kind of rude.
Yeah, right,
So
right,
you always want to really put your best foot forward and
right.
really show companies that you're very grateful to work there,
Mm-hmm.
even if that's maybe not necessarily how you feel about a certain company.
Mm-hmm.
Like, say this is like your last resort, like, they're still putting themselves out there to pay you
Mm-hmm.
and offer you a position when other kids definitely want to work there, even if you don't like the company. So always show your appreciation, because money is money.
Right, right. It's, I feel like it's a simple act, but it goes a long way.
Yeah,
It's
like,
very
people
helpful.
definitely remember you.
Yeah, yeah. Eh,
Um, and on that note, if you're trying to develop more professional relationships,
mm-hmm.
um, another big thing that has really set me apart from other people, has been goodbye gifts
Yeah,
whenever I finish. at a company,
Mhm.
I'll go out of my way. I mean, obviously it doesn't have to be for everyone, although I will say obligatory donuts for the office on any birthday you have or on your last day working there,
Mhm.
always appreciated. Definitely leaves a great impression, and donuts are super cheap. So
Right.
that's one way of doing it.
Right.
Donuts, cookies, whatever, but usually donuts.
Mhm.
That and just like goodbye gifts for like your mentor or your manager, obviously, but also people that you worked closely with in your office. Um, and then like a little note that says, thank you for working with me. You know, it was great working with you. Here's my contact information if you ever need it, and wish you best of luck in the future. Generally goes a really long way. Um, at Canon, it was quite appreciated. Like one of the people I gave it to almost cried. So, you
Oh,
know, it's kind of funny to see like this like middle-aged man almost have tears in his eyes, and it's like, wait, no, don't cry. I mean, very flattered, but don't cry.
yeah.
Um, yeah, but
That's
people don't get appreciated enough in their jobs, I think, just in general,
mhm.
and to have like an intern appreciate you
Mhm.
um enough to get you a gift is really the thought that counts. And it doesn't have to be expensive gifts either. It could literally just be like a mug and some chocolate, um and then like a little thank you card. Doesn't have to be a $50 gift card. Like, anyway, the right people will appreciate it and will definitely leave the right impression in case you ever want to go back to that company.
Yeah, that's wholesome.
Yeah, yeah,
I
really.
definitely didn't do that, but well,
I mean, yeah,
I
yeah.
forgot to. To be fair, the day before our last day was a storm, so it was
Oh
kind of
wow.
hard. Yeah, yeah, it was quite eventful,
Yeah, that's how it is on the East Coast, yeah.
right? Right? Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, again, this is just for future reference to
Hmm.
develop those sort of relationships.
Yeah, of
It
course.
really it really does mean a lot to be appreciated by somebody.
It
So,
goes a long way.
yep.
All right, so get to more personal level. So because you have been co-op for a while now, so almost
Right.
a year on
Yep.
co-op. So having to relocate from one place to another and finding a new home, finding a new house, finding new people, friends, that get hard. Is that hard sometimes?
Sorry, is that hard what?
Is that hard to do that, to move to one place to another all the time, and
Oh
then
yeah.
find new people, find new friends, that's a lot of stuff. Like, that get lonely sometimes.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's it's not easy
Yeah.
to sort of jump from place to place, and it's definitely it takes a toll on you like mentally and physically,
Hmm.
um especially during COVID times
Of
because
course. Yeah.
flying everywhere
Yeah.
and driving everywhere. But um yeah, I mean, all my possessions have whittled down to maybe a couple of boxes
Hmm.
because I'm always moving everywhere. So
Hmm.
I feel like I can never have too much stuff, and I can never buy myself nice things because I won't be able to take them with me everywhere I go.
Right.
Um, and like it really is a minimalistic lifestyle
Hmm.
unless you have the ability to afford to ship everything back and forth to wherever
Hmm.
you're moving.
Hmm.
Um, Friends is a huge issue because
Hmm.
you start to notice very quickly that your friends may or may not put in the effort that you think they should be putting into a friendship.
Hmm.
Um, which is why I love being friends with you. You're the greatest.
Thank you.
But I've definitely had some friends who, if I don't reach out to them, they end up not reaching out to me, and it's kind of an eye opener because you're like, oh, I thought we were kind of cool, and like you'd care about the fact that I haven't talked to you in 3 months, but I guess that's not how it is. And it doesn't help that you don't really have family with you. because as much as I think my sister and my brother are annoying, I still miss talking to them,
Right.
and just hearing about their day, even if they won't shut the hell up after like 3 hours. um, but yeah, it's kind of difficult to sort of deal with those feelings of like loneliness and
Mm-hmm.
like lack of belonging.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and again, that's why I think that it's you kind of end up trying to form personal bonds with the people you work with.
Right.
Um, and depending on the company, that may or may not be what happens. So like at Canon, I was really close to everyone I worked with. Like we all went out for like dinners and stuff towards the end, and it was really nice. I know that they would go out and like shoot cannons on the weekend, like literal actual like pirate cannons, you know. Um, but then you go to Tesla and like nobody talks to each other. Everyone has their own little separate life outside of work, what
Okay.
little life they do have. So, um, definitely different vibes.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I could be an intern forever if it
Mm-hmm.
meant having to move around so often. And
Right.
again, that's why I'm looking for my first job to hopefully be the job that I keep for 10 to 15 years, as opposed to moving around, because I'm sort of over this whole um over this whole moving around situation.
Yeah, that that sucks sometimes. And also, I that's the thing too. Like when you interview for job, the question that's not get asked enough is how the culture is like in those places. Because
Oh yeah.
because it's one thing that the place is great and everything, every everybody is very motivated and stuff. But it's the other thing that how people treat each other in those places, in those companies, right?
Right.
Right. So like I
Yeah.
definitely like my the last co-op I had because the the my boss is also from IT, also was from the co-op program, and I feel like he understands like my struggle, my needs, and all that, and
Right.
it's easier to talk with him about that kind of personal stuff. So and to me, he's very down to earth. So
Yeah.
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 So so I appreciate that the company has that kind of work culture or the working culture that allows for more personal touch like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That workers really know um really close to each other, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So like hobby wise, like the stuff that outside of school and work, like what do you do for fun like, in general?
Man, I sleep for fun.
Right, right. Oh.
um, I mean, it's kind of hard for places like Tesla where you're
Mhm.
expected to do so much overtime just by default,
Yeah.
to sort of have hobbies
Mhm.
outside.
Mhm.
Um, at Canon, I was trying not to get killed by a dog every single day, so
Right.
that that sort of had me cooped up in my room.
Hmm.
But when I'm not doing that, you know, I enjoy like critiquing movies. Um,
Nice.
Watching and critiquing movies is a big one.
Hmm.
Um, I enjoy like singing, playing ukulele, um,
Right.
guitar, piano, all that jazz.
Hmm.
I used to do it professionally. So if you search really hard on the internet, you can find me singing for a radio show. But
Nice.
yeah, but
Awesome.
I can't do that anymore because again, I move around so often.
Hmm.
So I kind of just sing in my room by myself, like a little loner. But you know, something to pass the time.
Yeah.
Um, Recently got into self-help books lately.
Oh,
Like,
really?
yeah, I really like walked into Goodwill, and um I went to the book section looking for like a regular book, and I was like, wow, there is a large amount of self-help books here. So
Mm-hmm.
I picked up a couple of them and I started reading them. And let me tell you, some of that stuff works better than therapy. Like, if
Mm-hmm.
you guys can go out there and get some self-help books, really do it. Because changed my life, man. Changed my life. Could not
Yeah.
recommend enough.
Right. 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 That's good.
Yeah.
What do you recommend for self-help book? What kind?
Um,
A name?
there's this one called Tools to Self-Recovery, or
Mm,
yeah, Self-Esteem Tools to Self-Recovery. I forget who the authors are, but
mm,
it's super short. It's like 100 to 150 pages.
mm-hmm.
And it helps you, like, if you suffer from, like, childhood trauma, which I'm sure a lot of us do if we grew up in like the same Asian household. You know how it is. Um,
Right.
it really sort of helps you um sort of dig deeper to like figure out, like, oh, this is a matter of the problem and maybe not like a matter of who I am personally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sort of helps you reestablish what you want to do and where you want to go. Um, and just come to terms with the issue itself and not you yourself. Um, again, super great read for anybody. You guys should do it. Just grab it. It was super cheap. Again, I went to Goodwill because Goodwill is um, a thrift store,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like $1 for all of these books. So, what is there left to lose?
Right. Right.
Um, definitely beats $60 for every single therapy session you have to go to. So,
Right. Of course. So
yeah.
dig a little deeper into the whole engineering guys in the field. So, all right. So do you think that personally, do you feel that guys in engineering fields like are they social enough? Like sometimes do they act a little bit insensitive? Do you think that?
Oh, this is a very sensitive topic, let me tell you. But I think I think it really varies.
Okay.
The guys that I've talked to in the engineering field,
Hmm.
um, I will say the older ones, like the ones who are in like their late 40s, early 50s to their 60s, the older you get, the nicer you become and the
Right,
more
right.
friendly
True.
you become,
True.
really.
I
Because, like,
that's so true.
yeah, like I've talked to so many guys who are like my age. Well, actually, I take that back. There's a couple my age that are very sweet. But I've talked to a ton that are like in their mid to late 20s, early 30s, and they're like stressed out of their minds and also super awkward, and I don't know how to deal with that, and they don't know
Hmm.
how to deal with me
Hmm.
because I think they kind of just look at me and think, "Oh, it's a girl."
Hmm.
And also another human, and they they're really awkward to talk to. Like, they're really awkward to talk to. I cannot work with them.
I see.
I mean, I can work with them because I have to, but I would not go out of my way to be friends with them,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. um I definitely think, and again, this is why I advocate so heavily for becoming friends with engineering techs.
Hmm.
um I definitely think engineering technician guys are a lot easier to talk to than actual engineers.
Hmm.
And I think it's because they're sort of like that bridge between regular people and engineering,
Hmm.
because they have the knowledge of an engineer, but the personality of a regular dude, you
Right.
know?
Down to
Um,
earth guy. Yep.
yeah, yeah. And you really just don't see enough down to earthness with these engineers out here, man. It
Yeah.
sucks. Um, but yeah, I was lucky enough to basically, as they call it, be put in a geriatric ward at Canon,
Hmm.
because all the engineers were like in their 50s or 60s, because they're kind of older, and they were what's the word I'm looking for? Blast to work with.
Yeah.
You know, like everyone was super cool. everyone was extremely nice, because at that point, what do they have to lose? Like, they're
Right,
helping
right.
out
That's true.
somebody who's young and is a female, and you're trying to get them to take over your job so you can retire, you know.
Right.
um, yeah, and that's definitely not the same vibe as Tesla, let me tell you, where everybody's sort of younger at Tesla.
Hmm.
So like, think anywhere from mid, well, no, I take that back. Like, anywhere from 23 to like 30s
Hmm.
is roughly the age group. Um, and they're all too busy with their own work to try and like interact with people,
Hmm.
unless it's about work.
Hmm.
And it was kind of weird. I had a feedback session with my mentor,
Hmm.
and I was sitting there, and he had said, or like, I had said something like, I really wish we got like more professional development time together, because I'd go into these one-on-ones with you every week, and I would just ask a bunch of questions about work, and that was it, and then we'd be done, and I'd say, would you have any questions for me? And you'd say nope, and then we would leave.
Yeah.
And so I wish you had like asked something about like, oh, what about your resume? We could see what you want to do after college, because everybody else I knew got that sort of treatment.
Hmm.
And he was like, well, you know, like well, then I said, I never brought it up because it felt like you didn't want to bring it up because you didn't bring it up, and also because you're not very confrontational. And it sounds like you don't really want to talk about anything aside from work,
Okay.
and like only pertinent work. And
Hmm.
he looked at me and he goes, well, you don't know me. And I'm like,
Jeez.
whoa, that is aggressive as hell.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
like, I was just trying to give you helpful advice, and also you definitely are not confrontational.
Mm.
So I don't know what to tell you, dog. And if I didn't know you like that, then yeah, you should have brought it up and not have me like have to bear the burden of having to do it. But that's a whole other story.
Jeez.
Um,
I don't
yeah,
know. That's just, that's just rude,
yeah. I was like, wow, okay, I get it. It's cool. But yeah, I don't know. That really sort of defines um a lot of the awkwardness I had with
Mm.
younger engineers, or younger guy engineers, where like I give them a gift and they literally don't know how to react. Like, I gave them goodbye gifts at Tesla, right?
Right.
And I swear all the engineers, like engineer guys that I gave it to, looked at it. None of them went thank you. All of them went okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, uh, okay. And then I would just have to awkwardly walk away because there's nothing more to add to the conversation. Because they don't go like, okay, are you going back to college? Because they don't talk to you like that. Because
Oh,
they're too busy with their work,
yeah.
and they don't have like the social cues, I suppose, to say thank you. So you're like, I don't know what to do with this information. Like, where do I go from here? Where does the conversation go from here?
Jeez.
Um, but yeah,
Jeez.
I don't know.
Oh,
Guys at RIT are a little easier to talk to, at least in our
really?
major. But
Oh, yeah.
still,
Yeah.
some of them lack those social cues, and I'm sitting there like, okay, like,
Right.
you take it in stride.
Hopefully, I'm not like that.
No,
Yeah.
no, no, you're
Okay.
you're fine. You're fine.
Okay.
At least you can hold a conversation.
Right.
Again,
Right.
some of those engineers is like, it's like pulling teeth to try
Yeah.
and get more than two words out of them.
See. Okay. So, what do you think the reason is?
Oh man, there's tons of reasons that can vary per person, but I really think it comes down to the fact that, again, at least at Tesla, they were so wrapped up with their work that they don't understand social cues.
Okay.
Um, and like, same thing at RIT. Some of these people have like been so like subjected to hanging out with other people who are also socially awkward, that they
Oh,
don't understand when like what to do when somebody's being nice to them, or when somebody
right.
wants to hold a conversation, because they're playing video games all day cooped up in their room. Like, I hate to make a stereotype out of people, but like really, it does come down to the awkward engineer stereotype, um that because they're not interacting with enough people, because
right,
they're so into like math, science, video games,
right,
other things,
right,
um, that they just don't know what to do.
right.
Um, and that's why, like, for the software engineers at RIT, they have to take a communications class.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, they really do. And the
Uh,
communications class is just how to have a freaking normal conversation with another human being. Um, and I'm like, wow, could not be me. And I honestly, I I think that's why I excel so much when it comes to like internships and just general like interviews and such, is because when it comes to interviews, 99% of them at the internship stage are going to be behavioral for mechanical engineering.
mm-hmm.
And as you can tell by the length of this podcast, um,
Oh,
I
yeah,
have no problem talking. I have no
yeah,
problem talking. And I have no problem writing because, again, I had that liberal arts background. Um, and because of that, like, people, any of the work that you get, again, not a lot of it is really that technical, especially if you're over designing everything.
right, right, right. That's
Um,
true.
so it really does come down to the people you work with. And nobody wants to work with somebody who's really that introverted and doesn't really want to talk to anybody. But
Yeah,
if you have someone who's like willing to talk to you for a bit and like shoot the shit while you're waiting for like your lunch break to be done,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um that's immediately like a better candidate for any job.
Right,
And again, that's what made me so successful at Tesla, or not Tesla, but at Canon, is
yeah,
because everyone there is kind of like, it's very slower paced in terms of work. So a lot of it is really, you really have to like your coworkers in order to have great relationships with them.
right. And not just professionally, it just you know make
Right.
life easier to live. you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
just like oh god. I mean, I haven't really talked to guys about this kind of issue yet, but like I want to know from your perspective about this kind of stuff because it's interesting to me because I'm part of that crew that you know um the more like my major is mostly male,
Right.
so sometimes it's kind of hard to get the different perspective. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Right, right, right. But definitely the older guys, they just really chill. They just like they're more willing to talk to you about to teach you stuff. I remember that one time, like so back in my old job at RIT, the GIS
Right.
building, my boss was okay, but sometimes he too busy with other stuff. I think so he didn't really have much time to sit down explain from A to B. You know what I mean?
Right.
But the old mechanic guy, he's the best. He's like he sit down, he willing to talk to me like why this design work and why it doesn't, from the machining perspective. And
Right.
he suggested some changes to the drawing and to the design. So I was like, so to me, the older guy they just more relaxed and they have more time from
I think
to
another
explain to
thing,
me.
right. I think another thing with it is that the older you are, the more you realize that like your job is secured, you have your years of experience. At
Right,
this point, like if they fire you, oh no, you can literally get a job anywhere else.
right.
Whereas like younger engineers feel like they have something to prove.
Mm-hmm,
So they're always on the go, like, oh no, I don't have time for you. I'm too busy
mm-hmm,
doing my own thing so that I won't get fired and also will look good to higher ups, you
mm,
know?
right, right. Yeah, like it's true. It's just natural of the workforce, I guess.
Yeah,
Again, not to say that one guy is better than other. Let's not take things personally, but that's
right.
that's the way feel about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, what's your final goal, at least for now? What do you think? Like, what do you want to get out of college, at least?
Oh, out of college.
Yeah,
Wow, that took a left turn.
Yeah.
Um, Good question. I think at least out of college,
Mm-hmm.
I really hope to gain more friends. Like I know that's not the academically correct answer, but you'll find out very quickly through internships that the friends you make in college are really the friends that are going to stick with you for life,
That's true.
and
Yep.
will be the ones that you stay with after college, because coworkers are not your friends
Mm-hmm.
usually. Um, I mean, obviously there's exceptions to that rule, but coworkers are like not the friends you hang out with on the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so the friends you want to make in college are the ones that are going to show up to your wedding or are going to be there for you when like you have to go to a funeral or something,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have, a couple of really good friendships with people, but I'd like to talk to some new people too, just in case.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Another thing would be to really like take control of my classes,
Mm.
um, and sort of focus my attention onto classes that actually freaking matter now.
Yep. Yep.
Because my first two and a half years of college have been really focused more on just trying to get like the gen eds out of the way and
Mm.
the core classes for mechanical engineering out of the way. But now that all that's said and done, now I can get into the electives, which is where all that stuff gets applied,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
or all that knowledge gets applied into things that actually matter, like
Yeah.
manufacturing.
Yep. Yep.
Um, so I'm hoping to take like a robotics class,
Right.
um, or fluid systems,
Mm-hmm.
or HVAC or something where all this knowledge can get utilized in a productive way as opposed to just everything in theory.
Right.
Because let me tell you, I've been out doing this internship thing for like almost a year now, and I have used what I've learned from school a total of like two times.
Right.
Two.
Right.
One of
Right.
them was the right hand rule, which I only knew because of high school physics. And the other one was like I had to look at a formula to figure out whether or not what we were looking at was time dependent or not. That wasn't even using the formula. That was just looking to see if there was a variable that was time.
Ah.
So, like,
Right.
oh,
Right.
wow, wow. So, it was a lot. I was so annoyed. Um, but, that's college for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything that you learn, 99% of it isn't going to be used as an actual engineer, but
True.
it's just so you know what the hell other people are talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I had an engineer at Tesla try and my mentor is like an industrial engineer by major,
Mm-hmm.
but he's a manufacturing engineer by job
Mm-hmm.
title. And so I had him try and explain something to me um for like a design purpose, and he was trying to explain it, and I looked at him and I was like, that's a terrible idea, but I can't explain why, but it's a terrible idea. And he was like, okay. And so I go talk to one of the mechanical engineers on our team, who's also a design engineer, and I say, hey, this is my mentor's design. This is a terrible idea, but I can't explain why. And he's like, oh, yeah, that is the worst idea I've ever seen. And here's why. And he starts talking about like axes of rotation. And I'm like, I know that word. I know that word. I know what you're
Yes.
talking about.
Yeah.
Yes, that one. He's
Yep.
like, yeah, you shouldn't use like a frictionless, or you should be using a frictionless surface. And this one has everything that has to do with friction. So what the hell? And I'm like, dude, that's me too. I understand that. I understand that.
Right.
Um, and then we were able to have a whole conversation where we could understand each other. So long story short, all my classes have amounted to nothing but one big vocabulary lesson,
Right.
but that's how it goes.
That's how it goes. But hopefully next this time we get the classes we can apply the knowledge to. Like I think strength two, that could be the
Right.
good one. Yeah. And some of the machine design class that will be useful in the future.
Yeah.
At least
I don't know.
yeah, at least that's what me and that's what I and my boss talk about. Like when we talk about a lot about designing prospect, he said that he feels good when he can design stuff that he can use a map to prove it. You know what I mean?
Right,
Right.
right,
So at least he feel confident with his design when he got the map as backup, like why he choose certain material or screw size and strength and all that.
right.
So so I look forward to the elective in the future in RT. So,
Mm-hmm.
all right. So I think
Cool.
that's about it. Do you have any advice for future students? Any like Mackie student RIT or college in general?
Um, Maybe not to Mechie students, but to students in general when it comes to choosing colleges and choosing your major.
Mm.
First of all, your college doesn't matter. Let me tell you.
All right.
Like when I applied to RIT, it was my backup school.
Mm-hmm.
Like my grades were like, 4.0 type.
Mm-hmm.
Um I could have definitely gone to a University of California.
Mm-hmm.
Um and I chose to go to RIT because of the money, but I felt so badly about it because all my friends were going to, Ivy Leagues and top tier public education schools.
Mm-hmm.
And here I was going to like this quote unquote subpar, like nobody knows about it school in the middle of freaking nowhere in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the one thing I've realized is that the only reason you don't hear about RIT is because we don't do a lot of academia things, but we send a
Right.
ton of people out into industry. So
Right.
every time I talk to somebody from like, Arkansas or California or like Texas, they'll say, "Oh, what school are you from?" And like I'm ashamed to admit it. I'm like, "Oh, I'm from like RIT. It's just like a little like medium-sized university in upstate New York." And they're like, "Oh, we love RIT. We hire people there all the time.
Ah.
Like, it's amazing. You guys are awesome. We love your program." And I'm like, "What the hell? I had no idea that like we reached out into these places." I interviewed for a company like very recently, and they had said, "Hey, like we want to extend you an offer." Um, and I had asked them because they asked me like, "Oh, do you have any questions for us?" I was like, "Well, I see that you're extending me an offer, but I know that you're like two streets down from Cornell, which
Mm-hmm.
is a huge, like very popular university. Why aren't you hiring from Cornell or Carnegie Mellon or any other like Ivy League school?" And they said, "Well, we've tried. Like we've had Cornell students, we've had even MIT students come here to work for us, and they're so theory based
Mm-hmm.
that it makes it difficult for them to work with us.
Mm.
But
Okay.
RIT's co-op program, super great, super awesome. You guys are so smart. We love you, and you're cool people to work with.
Mm.
Because you don't have that sort of theory-based knowledge and also 4.0 GPAs.
Right.
So, we love you guys instead. And I was like, "Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that." But going back to my point, yeah, you never know what your university has to offer, but it always has more to offer than you think it does.
Okay.
Um, and definitely don't let like the name hold you back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Especially if it's a money issue. Some people pay way too much to attend certain colleges, and it's like just don't. Your poor wallet, you're going to end up coming out of this college with no better in education than somebody else, or no better job prospects than somebody else who went to a quote unquote lesser university just because they're not as famous. But now the only difference is you have like tons of thousands of dollars in debt. So don't do that to yourself. Um, Regarding majors, you should. I'm my I had a substitute teacher once in high school who
Mm-hmm.
gave a huge lecture about this, and it's the best advice I ever received, and is actually kind of the reason I got into mechanical engineering, or at least wasn't super opposed to it, which is no matter what you do, make sure that the major you have is broad enough to where you can change careers if you really wanted to.
Mm.
So, for example, mechanical engineering is like a jack of all trades when it comes to engineering.
Super
So,
broad. Yep.
yeah, if I did like say 20, 30 years in manufacturing, and after the 30 years was like, wow, I cannot handle another day of manufacturing. I want to give up. This sucks. Worst industry. I don't like it.
Mhm.
Then the next day, because I have this degree under my belt, I can transfer all that knowledge over into a different field, like automotive or aerospace, and I'd have no problem switching over. Whereas if you get a job or a major like teaching, right? What if one day you decide, oh, teaching isn't really for me? Then what? You have a teaching degree, so then you're stuck teaching for the rest of your life unless you go back to school to get like, a different degree in a different field.
All right.
Um, and I think a lot of kids get stuck in that because they didn't really think about this beforehand. Um, and it kind of sucks because I've had friends who are like that, where they're stuck in a dead end job because they can't go anywhere else because they don't have the skills needed in order to transfer over. So there's that, you know.
Right. Right.
Um, let's
Yeah.
see.
I feel blessed as Mackie that I chose Mackie as a as my major. Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My roommate at Tesla is actually a packaging engineer.
Hmm.
And I was looking at the stuff that she was doing at Tesla, and I'm like, wow, I thought I would really like packaging engineering, but then I was stuck as a mechie, and now I'm looking at what you actually do in industry. And I am so glad that I stayed in mechie, because packaging engineering in the actual industry sucks. Like,
Really?
I would literally be so sad if that was my job every single
Mhm.
day.
Is it boring?
So, huh?
Is it boring? Yes.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Got it. Right. Right. Any
Yeah.
uh any other advice?
Um, let's see. I definitely do. I'm just trying to think about it.
Okay. Take your time.
Oh, when you go to college, definitely join, like, well, if you're trying to look for an internship as soon as possible, join a car club, at
Yep.
least as a mechie. I don't know
Right.
how it works with other people, but for mechies, if you join your school's like formula team, that really sets you apart, because
Mm-hmm.
again, you guys get performance team open houses. I
Mm-hmm.
know that's not just an RIT thing, they do it at other universities as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like it's huge. It really sets you apart. Also, it's a great thing to bring up in interviews.
Yep.
And if you really like can't be bothered to like devote your entire life to that car club, you can low-key do what I did. And this happens every year, and I'm trying to change it, but it's so hard. Um, where I will join and I'll be really active for like the first month or 2 months of the school year,
Mm-hmm.
and then I just drop off the face of the earth and stop going. But but I had those, 2 months of work and sweat and tears poured into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I can put it on my resume and I have something to talk about during interviews. And so,
Yep. That's awesome.
the credits there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, whatever meal plan you have in college is definitely too much.
Right. Right.
Get the lowest meal plan. You
Yeah.
definitely don't need that much food. And also, your school's cafeteria will get really boring
Mm-hmm.
really quickly
Right.
unless you go to University of California, because all their food is like top tier. Like, they got some Michelin star chefs there or something, because let me tell you,
Yes.
their food is bomb.com. But for most other schools, not worth it. Don't do it.
Cool.
Um,
That's what I heard too. I
yeah,
got the lowest one.
yeah, that's what I heard when I went to RIT. And I am so glad I followed that Reddit user's advice, because
Mm-hmm.
wow,
Yeah.
wow.
It's always
Um,
too much food, man.
yeah. Oh, wait. If you guys are trying to save money,
Mm-hmm.
this is the biggest thing I've ever learned and the best thing I've learned before I went to college, which is find the online PDF of everything,
Right.
textbook wise, and then go from there. Nobody needs to have the physical textbook in front of them. And if you're like, oh, my eyes hurt, I don't want to look at a screen all day,
Mm-hmm.
that's fine, totally cool. Then invest in like an industrial size printer like I did,
Mm-hmm.
and use that to print out the PDF of the free book that you got, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Right.
It'll save you so much money. Like I've literally saved thousands of dollars doing that instead of having to rent a textbook
Yeah.
every single year. Um, it's just it's insane.
Yeah.
The I
Sometimes,
cannot I cannot deal with that price gouging.
right. Sometimes the textbook, like we we only use it one time or twice, and it's $100. It's not worth it.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
The worst one is when I had to take circuits and they made you do that online homework, but the online homework required you to pay like $50 to access the
Yeah.
quote
Yeah. I
unquote
remember that.
online textbook.
Yeah.
Yeah, or like oh, what's that called? The engineering one that we had to do. Um,
The engineering lab. That's math
mastering
physics,
engineering.
I think. Oh, engineering. Yeah.
Yeah, mastering whatever. That entire thing is a scam. I hate it.
I
It's the
hate it.
worst thing.
Yeah.
I have spent so much money. I cannot unrecommend it enough.
It's just a way for them to save money, not not hiring a grader or TA, more TA,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But, well, it's what it is.
It, yeah. I don't know. That's college.
That's
Take all
college.
your money as
Yeah.
quick as they can.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's about it. It's almost 2 hours, so maybe
Yeah.
let's wrap this up.
Yep. I think
Um,
that's it.
thank you so much, Sam. I really appreciate you doing this.
Hey man, no problem.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of good advice there. And hopefully everyone, well, not everyone, but some of us feel find useful. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, hopefully.
yeah. Thank you so much again, and yeah, have a good night.
You too.